Hi, everyone. Welcome to English 2 CP. I'm Mr. Munoz.
I'm Mr. Felano. Good to meet all of you.
We're excited to have your students in our class, and we look forward to spending this year with them, hopefully entirely in person. It has been very nice to start the year off with everyone in the room. It's been very refreshing for
Definitely.
us. We get to kind of go back into doing what we were used to doing before this all started. So we're very excited to see your children and to begin the year. In this class, we cover two major themes, and then we have a little bit of a surprise in between. We start with a dystopian literature unit, and then we end the year with a coming of age unit, where we get to, in both units, we zoom out a little bit and we get to not only talk about the books as individual texts, but we also get to talk about the books in terms of a greater genre, in terms of the scope of the genre. And we begin with some dystopian short stories, which we're actually reading right now. We
hmm
started with Test, and we get to talk about how these short stories demonstrate the characteristics of a genre throughout um, and are in conversation with each other about what the dystopian genre aims to do. And our first book is The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. This is a book that we added to the curriculum last year. We wanted to get a little bit more of a diverse viewpoint in the mix of the curriculum. And this was written in 1994, I believe, but it was only translated into English in 2019. So it's a recent translation, and it's a very thought-provoking dystopian novel that deals with more of a fantasy dystopia setting than it does with a more traditional sci-fi dystopian setting too. Very interesting book.
hmm
And then we go into the classic 1984, which is more of a sci-fi dystopian feel. A book that is in a lot of conversations recently, and we get to read the text and to talk about it. And this culminates our dystopian unit and kind of one of the big pillars of the genre.
For sure.
And then we get to read Macbeth. Uh, Mr. Fulano, do you want to share your thoughts on Macbeth?
I love Macbeth. Last year was my first year teaching it, reading it, and it's great. It's a lot of fun. I think Mr. Munoz can agree that our class last year had surprisingly great time with it, especially for how resistant sometimes readers can be to getting into Shakespeare, but they really got a lot out of it. Mr. Munoz and I love to teach it. Mr. Munoz can agree that he is a huge Shakespeare guy. I am to a degree a large Shakespeare person, but yeah, it's great. Really excited to get into it. I teach in one of my other sophomore classes as well, and it's a lot of fun. I'm very excited.
A lot of times students come into our class only familiar with Romeo and Juliet, which makes perfect
hmm
sense. That's the Shakespeare they read in freshman year. And Macbeth is such a different animal than Romeo and Juliet
For
that
sure.
people who come in with absolutely opinion on the floor of what Shakespeare can be and how it affects them, Macbeth often changes their mind. It's a little more engaging. It's a little more faster paced, which can be very
hmm
fun. We also incorporate, just for the people who absolutely can't handle reading Shakespeare and really hate emotionally hate those days in class. We throw in a little bonus independent reading unit when we teach Macbeth, where every third day we are working on an independent novel instead of working on Macbeth. So we break it up a little bit that way, and your child can pick any novel, any book they want to read at all. It could be nonfiction, it could be fiction, and they get to do a little independent reading project with that in conjunction with Macbeth, just as a way of breaking up the Shakespearean language and as a way of uh, mixing up our lessons a little bit that day. Reading Macbeth straight through every single day can get a little exhausting. So we found that the independent reading unit helps break up that monotony a little bit. Not like
Definitely.
reading Macbeth is monotonous.
No, of course not.
And then at the end of the year, speaking of choice, our huge coming of age unit at the end of the year that encompasses two separate novels and some common texts that we share. We do coming of age book clubs where the students are given an option of, I think the list is going to be 8 or 9 books this year. And they pick one of these 8 or 9 coming of age books, they read it together in their book clubs. And we, as a class, base our assessments on the genre as a whole instead of on a traditional whole class novel book. So what that means is when they're writing about their book in connection to the coming of age genre instead of maybe taking a test on what happened in the beginning of Macbeth, right?
hmm
And then when they're finished with their first book club, we swap and they get to pick another book from the list of 9. They mix up the clubs and we get to finish the year with two choice novels, right? It's not the choice that you get to pick out of anything ever written. We of course constrain it to the choice of the genre and of our list, but it is fun to get to end of the year reading something that hopefully is a little tailored to your personal interests.
For sure. And it's always interesting to see the way that, these different novels have common tropes, common motifs that kind of unify the genre, and it's always interesting to see students make those connections.
Absolutely, yeah. It can be really fun. It can be really fun when we mix with they often meet in their book clubs, and then there are days where we mix the book clubs up entirely, and they check in on specific, like Mr. Felano said, tropes and characteristics of the genre, and see how these books are in conversation with each other about coming of age. And it would have been helpful if I had gotten to this slide a little earlier. This is our list that we've been working with. We're trying to add 2 new books onto this list as well, but this is our list. It covers a broad variety of perspectives, and it even covers a broad variety of formats too. Some of these books are written in slightly non-traditional formats, which is nice. Even The Catcher in the Rye is written as a stream of consciousness novel, which can be a very interesting style for some students. This is just a basic overview on how you'll see things come up in Genesis. We give projects and essays that are almost always 50 or more points. Those are the big things that we do. We try to do we try to do a project or an essay at least once every marking period. These are when we work on our writing skills, and our writing skills are how we assess the reading skills. We also can assess reading skills with some quizzes. These are smaller 20 to 30 point quizzes. Classwork is almost always 10 points or less, and homework we're usually coming in at 5 points just to make sure you've done it, check it off, and then what you use the homework for in class is worth more, but a little reading assignment would only just be a check off. We've gone through this whole presentation, and I neglected to give us time to introduce ourselves. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Felano. I'm Mr. Munoz. I've been in the district for 6 years. I have been teaching English 2 CP for 5 of those years, so I'm very familiar with the class. I love teaching this level. I love teaching this content. I've been fortunate to have a chance to get into the curriculum and edit it a little bit and update it a little myself. So I feel very, very happy with what is on the list for this year, and I look forward to teaching it again.
Yeah, like Mr. Munoz said, this is my second year in the district, so I'm a little bit not unfamiliar, but this is only my second year teaching the curriculum. But I had a great time teaching 2 different classes of sophomores last year, so I'm getting more and more familiar with it every day, working with it, and the second time around is always more fun, it's always better. So I'm really looking forward to getting deeper into the curriculum, working with a fresh batch of students, and doing everything we can to get them through and have them enjoy as many of the texts as we can.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for watching our video. We wish that we could have met you in person, but hopefully we'll get a chance to meet you at some point throughout the year. And hopefully, I don't think it'll be for anything bad. Everyone seems great so far. And we can't wait to work through this year with your students.
We'll see you soon, everybody. Take care.